When Neil deGrasse Tyson enters a room, you notice. The astrophysicist and author has spent the better part of 30 years using the strength of his personality and silky voice to become one of the most important and informed voices on science in America. He's forthright and steadfast in his views, which are all hooked to a common thread: facts. Science is a means, the best means ever devised, to establish what is and is not true in this world, he says. Current anti-science sentiment, he posits, has always been there, but the false affirmation effect created by the internet, coupled with the rise to power of people who believe in things that are objectively untrue, has created a crisis. It seems to me that if you're going to base civilization on ideas, you're better off anchoring them where you have verifiable truths and not on some faction of society that thinks they have a truth that lords over everyone. Tyson speaks to Wired about the importance of scientific literacy, the impact of discovering alien life, and the changing face of science in popular culture. On the need for critical thinking, you don't know what it would take to convince people to recognize what is objectively true. What I do know is that the educational system, the curriculum that is offered, typically does not give you any occasion to learn what science is and how and why it works. And if you don't know that, then you'll think science is the satchel of facts that comes to you in your textbook. And they just unzip your head, pour the facts in, zip your head back up, and then give you a test. So that's science. You can have people say, "I was never good at science, let me bypass this class, so I don't have to think about science." When in fact, everything that happens in your day is science, everything. If you have a scientifically literate electorate, it would be impossible to elect someone who is not. Period. Then they can have whatever political leanings they want on top of what they know is objectively true as established by the methods of tools of science. Then it's genuine politics, rather than politics pivoting on whether they think something is objectively true or not. Brian Greene on AI: Biological Life on Earth could be a stepping stone. It seems to me that the internet sort of landed in our laps in the last 20 years. And we had no tools to understand what forces could be exacted upon us by people with nefarious intent. So there ought to be, from kindergarten, courses on how to navigate the internet, how to judge what is true and what is not on the internet, how to look for information on the internet, how to look for information that's not simply handed to you on the internet. And if, for some reason, it's not possible for you to find information rather than only have it handed to you, then you need a law to step in. But for me, I would rather we be educated on how to handle this marvelous concept, this marvelous invention, this marvelous force of nature operating in our society, called the internet. On science in popular culture, in the hallowed halls of academia, generally, you do not get credits as a professional scientist for talking to the public. The system is not set up that way. The system of tenure generally doesn't care how many public talks you gave. It cares how many research papers you published. It cares how many times your research was cited for its importance. And so, in my field, we've had highly visible people who have shared the fruits of science research with the public. And it actually goes pretty far back, but let me stay modern and reference Carl Sagan. And in his efforts, there's some blood on the tracks there, because he was doing what no other scientist, let alone another astrophysicist, had done. He stepped out of the lab and addressed people in popular magazines and in talk shows that were not news, but entertainment. People criticized that, but then they saw that the funding tide waters rose for everyone, and that the federal representatives who control money that might fund your research in your lab, in your state, said, "Wait a minute, you're doing that stuff that I heard Carl Sagan talk about. Hey, that's pretty good." And then they smile and they're more interested in what you're doing. In my field, we know what it means to bring our research to the public. I'm a participant in that exercise in modern times. And so, yes, there's more science reaching more of the public than ever before. If you go through most of the history of the portrayal of scientists in the media, they're denuded of any character, any personality that matters in the storytelling of the film. They'd be some wirehead, lab coat-donning person behind the table. "Oh, is the asteroid going to hit? Well, the latest calculations show yes." "Okay, doc." And then you just move on and you leave the person behind and you pay attention to the people you really care about. Today, major budgets with major marquee actors and major directors are making films either about scientists or with science as a fundamental part of the storytelling. That's an important force. and I see that as mattering in the battle out there for what is objectively true and what isn't. On facts being the basis of political decision-making. Donald Trump announced that the United States was pulling out of the Paris Accord and everyone is shocked. I wasn't shocked, because this is what he told the people who elected him into office. Who should be shocked by any of this? It's exactly what you'd expect, because he campaigned that way. And so, you can like it or not, he represents the 60 million people who voted for him. What's true also, however, is that there is strong and fervent pushback on anti-science in our world. And that's a good sign, I think. That means there are enough people who are informed, who are getting their voices heard in the face of those who reject science and are trying to base legislation on it. If you had people who wanted to pull out of the Paris Accord say, yes, I recognize there's human-caused climate change, that we're increasing the CO2 and that it's trapping energy from the sun and altering the climate, I just don't care, and then proceed to pass whatever laws they want. If they said that, at least they'd be agreeing on what is objectively true. And then, thereafter, it becomes a political battle over what you do in the face of what's true. That would be different, because then the politics would be anchored in politics, rather than in a debate about what has already been established to be objectively true. And so regardless of all of this, there's strong pushback against the anti-vaccines, and against the flat earthers, and against the people in denial of the human role in climate change. There's pushback, and it's very strong, on the importance of discovering alien life. How do you detect the distant sound of an exploding submarine? Say we find life and it encodes identity in ways other than DNA. Oh my gosh, that will transform biology completely. A new way of making life, and that Earth is a zoo established by intelligent aliens, and they just observe us, and sometimes we bore them, and so they'll stir the pot and do either good or bad things, just for their own amusement. Just knowing that there is life. Yes, there are some religions that have an issue with it, but those religions would have issues with plenty of other things that science discovers. For the rest of us it will be exciting. Oh my gosh, it'll be an exciting fun day, clearly, but I don't know how it would change us. And, by the way, maybe that's the good thing about the unknown future of discovery. We actually don't know how we would change if we made a discovery, or what discovery awaits us that we can't even predict. It wouldn't even have to be a discovery, just have to be an outlook or a point of view. And what a point of view it was in 1859 to learn that all life on Earth has common ancestry. Are you better, separate and distinct from everything else? No, you are one of the same with different levels of DNA. 1859 was before we even knew DNA existed. DNA affirms the commonality of all life that was hypothesized by Charles Darwin. That, I think, that changed us. On funding for science, the greatest successes ever in society, and we can debate what we mean by how great something is, and not come about not because anyone focused their attention on it. It happened because entire fields of science were funded to explore the unknowns that existed at any time and in any place. And when you move the frontier of science forward, discoveries occur that, after the attention of a clever engineer is brought to bear on it, get problems solved. You can't ask a scientist to solve a specific problem. You can't go up to a scientist and say that and expect the solution. It's just not how science works. Science at its best is not that. Science at its best is, this is curious. I wonder what this means down the line. As Michael Faraday passed a wire through a magnetic field, and a meter moved indicating that electrons were passing through the wire as he moved it through the magnetic field. That's curious. You do this over here, it does that over there. Tabletop curiosity. And that, of course, is now the foundation of how we make electricity to this day. It's what a turbine is, what a turbine does. Is anybody thinking back then, oh, we can one day electrify every single room occupied by humans in the world? Is anyone thinking that at the time? No. But he was free to do research on the frontier of the unknown. Information technology is responsible for at least 1/3 of the world's GDP. So to ask me what problems should you assign science to attack? Sure, ask that of other people and they'll tell you, we need to cure cancer, we need to cure this, we need to cure that. Okay, but is the cure going to come from assigning the monies allocated the way you intend? That's the question here, and I will assert that most of what you want solved will not come about because you put that money that way.